Okay, let me talk about the Cleveland Browns. So heading into Week 10 of 2020, the Cleveland Browns are 5-3 on the season. And the Cleveland Browns, they're having a very good season. No doubt about it. And the Cleveland Browns were a team that I personally picked to make the playoffs. I had the Cleveland Browns going 9-7 and making the playoffs. And so far, it looks like they're on pace to potentially make the playoffs. You know, Kevin Stefanski, he's come in. He's proven to be a great fit for the city of Cleveland and that locker room. He's changed the culture right away. The offensive line has improved tremendously from a year ago. Cleveland went out and drafted offensive linemen. They signed offensive linemen in free agency. Those moves have paid off. The Cleveland Browns have been running the football very effectively. When Nick Chubb has played this year, he's actually going to come back this week versus who does Cleveland play? They play the Texans. So Nick Chubb will be back. He's a top 10 running back at worst right now. Nick Chubb is great. Kareem Hunt has played very well this year. The defense has kind of been shaky a little bit, but as long as you have Myles Garrett, you know, getting after the passer, and Denzel Ward locking up that number one wide receiver, you're going to be a pretty formidable defense. You got Jarvis Landry, Harrison Bryant, Austin Hooper. Even guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones have had their moments. Cleveland has very good tight ends and wide receivers. Obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. is out for the season. I'll get to Odell Beckham Jr. later and how, you know, he's had an effect on Cleveland this season. Do I trust Cleveland to make the playoffs without OBJ going forward? But let's focus in on Baker Mayfield, the quarterback. Because Baker Mayfield is completing 61% of his passes. He's got 15 touchdown passes to 7 interceptions, and he has a 90 pass rating through 8 games played. Not a bad season from Baker Mayfield. But I truly think that if Cleveland wants to truly have a successful season, Baker Mayfield has to lead this team to the playoffs. If Baker Mayfield doesn't lead the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs, barring injuries, you know, maybe a bunch of players get injured and their entire roster is depleted, you know, then I might give Baker Mayfield a pass, but I'm holding Baker Mayfield accountable. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He's got a very talented roster. Baker, I expect you to make the playoffs, big boy. Okay, I expect you to make the playoffs. I really do. You know, Baker Mayfield had a very good rookie season. He was riding high. His sophomore season, he really came down to earth. And this year, the thing that I like about Baker Mayfield is he's been consistently good from time to time. Not great. He was great versus Cincinnati, but he's been consistently good for the most part. He had a bad game versus Oakland. Not Oakland, pardon me. I keep saying Oakland. He had a pedestrian game versus the Raiders. He didn't play his best versus Baltimore and Pittsburgh. But for the most part, Baker Mayfield, he's been doing a good job. However, down the stretch, if the Cleveland Browns are going to make the playoffs, I truly believe that Baker Mayfield is going to have to be great. Because I look at some of the teams that Cleveland's competing with. First of all, let's look at their schedule. Cleveland still has Deshaun Watson on their schedule. The Houston Texans. You know, I say Deshaun Watson because he's that entire team. And let's be real. Deshaun Watson, if he's on your team, you can win on any Sunday. So listen, you got Deshaun Watson traveling to Cleveland this week. You got Carson Wentz next week, who's a decent quarterback. You know, he's kind of had a down year, but when Carson Wentz is on his A game, he's really good. You're at Tennessee. Tennessee is a very good football team. You have to play Baltimore. You have to play Pittsburgh still. And for what it's worth, I'll even throw in the New York Football Giants because Joe Judge, he has that team playing a lot better than I thought they would be playing up to this point. Cleveland's got some tests. They've got some big-time tests on their schedule. And we are truly going to find out how good of a quarterback Baker Mayfield is by the end of the season. If Cleveland's not in the playoffs, I have my questions because, listen, man, Baker was drafted to change Cleveland's franchise. And he to a certain degree, has changed their franchise. But I look at Baker Mayfield, and I say so far, he's good, but he's not great. And sometimes, if you're going to make the playoffs, and you're going to make deep playoff runs, you're going to have not just good quarterback play, but great quarterback play. And I look at Baker Mayfield's division. Lamar Jackson's won an MVP. Big Ben's won 2 Super Bowls. He's a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. And I truly think that Joe Burrow's more talented than Baker Mayfield. And listen, if you're Cleveland and you're looking at yourself and saying, man, Baker Mayfield, he's holding his back. He's the 4th best quarterback in this division. Eventually, you might have to move on. I'm sorry, but This roster is too talented for Baker to not get it done. I'm holding Baker Mayfield accountable. We will need to see if Baker Mayfield can become a truck driver and not just a trailer on a truck these final weeks of the NFL season. Because at some point, the Cleveland Browns running game will get taken away. At some point, Jarvis Landry is going to be tightly covered. At some point, Myles Garrett might not be getting after the quarterback. And Baker Mayfield will have to go toe-to-toe and blow for blow with the Mahomes of the world, with the Josh Allens of the world, with the Lamar Jacksons of the world, with the Big Bens of the world. Kind of similar to how I talked about Phillip Rivers earlier. We need to see if Baker Mayfield can make those high-level throws. And listen, also, I want to really see how Baker Mayfield performs going forward because he's going to be without Odell Beckham Jr. Great quarterbacks can elevate the team around them. And to a certain degree, at times, Baker has looked better without Odell Beckham Jr. He really, truly has. At times, he's looked better without Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, he really has. I think that Baker Mayfield at times tries to force feed the ball to Odell Beckham Jr. way too much. There are some quarterbacks that just quite aren't ready to have number one wide receivers. I truly think that at times Baker is just better distributing to the open man and not trying to force things to OBJ. And listen, I'm an OBJ fan. I always think that OBJ has kind of gotten a bad rap. I really think that he's gotten a bad rap up to this point in his career. You know, I don't think that he's a diva. I think that he's a guy that likes to have fun. I really do. I don't consider Odell Beckham Jr. to be a diva. But listen, I've always had a firm belief that it's always very valuable to have a number one wide receiver that defenses that defenses might need to double team, that defenses might need to pay attention to. And it really helps to have a guy that can beat Marlon Humphrey, that can beat Tre'Davious White, that can beat the number one defensive back on the opposing team. It's very helpful. So one side of me says Cleveland needs Odell Beckham Jr. because he's very talented, but also the other part of me says maybe you need to trade Odell Beckham Jr. in the offseason and get better defensive players to maybe get Baker the ball back more. So we really are going to find out how good Baker Mayfield is, and we're really going to find out if Cleveland needs Odell Beckham Jr. going forward. We will find out a lot about Baker Mayfield by the end of the 2020 NFL season, and we're going to truly see if Cleveland is a legitimate playoff team in 2020. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juiciest Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God-blessed day, and I'm out.